A voice that sounds a lot like Aya Wilson's. They handled it, the voice says. It's already taken care of. The room goes quiet. Then laughter. That is the audio clip that has the entire WNBA on fire. Leaked just hours after a playoff matchup between the Las Vegas Aces and the Indiana Fever. The audio has fans questioning everything, from the integrity of officiating to the stability of the Aces' so-called dynasty. Because once you hear it, and pair it with what actually unfolded on the court, it's hard not to connect the dots. And suddenly, what looked like just another night of bad officiating doesn't feel so random anymore.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Let's talk about that game. The one that took place on Vegas's home court, under the brightest lights, in front of a sold-out crowd that came expecting a coronation. Instead, they got a collapse. And underneath it all, whispers of rigging. From the first quarter, the refereeing was odd. Soft fouls on Indiana. Missed calls in favor of Vegas. Players getting whistled for brushing past defenders, while elbows from Aces players seemed to magically disappear from the stat sheet. The Fever were playing 2-on-5, fighting not just the Aces, but the officiating crew that looked like they might have been sitting in on Vegas's pregame film session. Then came a game tape. Side-by-side breakdowns of blown calls. Missed travels. A tech called on Aaliyah Boston for what looked like asking a question. Fans flooded social media. Analysts looked uncomfortable. The commentary team, usually diplomatic to a fault, started hinting that something was off. And just as the noise was about to die down, boom, the audio dropped. A voice, eerily close to Wilson's, casually mentioning how the refs had already been taken care of. No context, no denial, no explanation, just silence. And suddenly, the story shifted from weird officiating to potential scandal. Not just for the Aces, not just for Wilson, but for the league itself. Because this isn't some random tweet from a fan account. This is alleged proof of direct tampering. And while no one's confirmed the clip yet, no official statements, no legal threats, nothing. It's the absence of denial that's making it worse. If this were false, wouldn't the league be screaming it from the rooftops? Instead, we're getting nothing. Just vague promises of internal reviews and standard protocol. Translation? Panic mode. Let's be clear. If the audio is authentic, and right now a lot of people think it is, it means one of the WNBA's most visible stars may have directly influenced the outcome of a playoff game. That's not just controversial. That's explosive. It undermines everything. The MVP race, the championship legacy, the trust between teams and officials. And if the league doesn't move fast, it risks spiraling into something they can't walk back. But here's the twist. Even with all of that stacked against them, Indiana still won. Despite the rigged calls, the one-sided officiating, and the atmosphere that was clearly tilted in Vegas's favor, the Fever walked into the Lions' den and shut it down. They beat the Aces 89-73. Not just a win, a statement. And that's what really broke the internet. Because now we're not just talking about cheating. We're talking about failing at it. Let's talk about the collapse. Aya Wilson, the reigning MVP, played like the pressure had finally caught up. Missed shots, poor decision-making, a technical foul that felt more like frustration than leadership. You could see it unraveling in real time. The composure wasn't there. The swagger had evaporated. Meanwhile, Indiana looked locked in. Kelsey Mitchell put on a masterclass. 34 points. Fearless. Poised. She carried herself like she'd been here before, even though she hadn't. She hit shots that felt like daggers. Step-backs, deep threes, fast break finishes. And every time Vegas tried to claw back, she answered. Odyssey Sims? Cold as ice. Her defense was surgical. Her playmaking was unselfish and sharp. Aaliyah Boston, despite being targeted all night by both refs and opponents, held her ground. She took hits. She stayed poised. Lexi Hull, relentless on the boards, diving for loose balls, making the hustle plays that don't show up in the stat sheet but win games. The Fever didn't just survive. They dominated. And that's what made the scandal feel even worse. Because it proved something the league didn't want to admit. You can't rig hard. You can't manufacture resilience. And you can't silence a team that's built on unity. Vegas had everything: home court, superstar power, favorable whistles, and the benefit of the doubt. Indiana had each other, and they played like it. So what does this leave the Aces? Exposed. Their dynasty looks fragile now, held together not by depth or versatility, but by Io Wilson's talent and the league's protection. And when Wilson cracked, the whole house of cards came down with her. They didn't just lose the game, they lost the illusion. Because this isn't the first time people have whispered about officiating bias in favor of Vegas. It's just the first time the evidence came with a potential smoking gun. Now the league's at a crossroads. If they ignore this, if they sweep the audio under the rug and pretend it's business as usual, they lose the fans, the trust, the integrity of the game. But if they act, if they investigate, issue fines, suspensions, or worse, they risk detonating the brand they've built around Wilson and the Aces. It's a lose-lose, but one of those paths at least preserve the game. Because what Indiana did out there, that was basketball at its finest. No gimmicks, no agendas, just pure, focused execution. And it matters, because for too long, teams like Indiana have been treated like filler. Background characters in the league's scripted drama. Clark's rookie season has kept them relevant, but they've been playing as if they have something to prove to everyone, even the officials. And this game? It was their proof. Proof that teamwork beats talent when talent cheats. Proof that discipline beats chaos. Proof that even when the game is rigged, heart still wins. So where do we go from here? We wait, we watch, and we demand answers. Because if this league wants to grow, really grow, it has to confront the uncomfortable stuff. The bias, the favoritism, the superstar treatment, the off-court politics that bleed into the hardwood. Because otherwise, what are we even watching? If you can't trust the product, you won't invest in it. And that's the danger. Right now, the league has a window, a chance to reset, to clean up, to show the fans and the players that nobody is above the game. Not even the MVP, not even a dynasty, not even a headline. And if they don't, they risk losing it all. Because fans remember this stuff. They don't forget. And Indiana, they're not going anywhere. They've already made their statement. They've taken down the queens. They've survived the refs. They've flipped the narrative. Now it's the league's turn. Step up, or get exposed. What do you think? Is the leaked audio real? Did Io Wilson cross the line? Should the league investigate? Or are they just hoping we all forget? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And hit that subscribe button if you're tired of the cover-ups and want the real story behind the W's biggest scandals. Because this isn't just drama. This is history. And we're just getting started. It's forcing every single person who follows the WNBA to ask the one question no league ever wants floating in the air. Is the game even real anymore? That's what happens when the integrity of officiating is ripped apart in front of everyone. Fans don't argue about play styles. They don't debate defensive schemes or shooting percentages. They debate validity. Was the outcome authentic or scripted? Did Indiana actually earn it? Or was Vegas set up to win from the start, only to choke the bag? And once that conversation starts, you can't put it back in a box. Because this isn't just about one playoff game. It's about a trend. For months, hell, for years, fans have complained about inconsistent officiating in the W. Star players getting calls their opponents never would. Rookie stars like Caitlin Clark getting knocked to the floor with no whistle, while veterans get touch fouls for breathing on the paint. That favoritism has always been chalked up to experience bias or league politics. But now, with this audio, it feels like maybe, just maybe, the bias wasn't an accident. And that's terrifying. Let's talk about what makes this so damning. Vegas was supposed to cruise. The Aces are the defending dynasty, loaded with talent, playing at home, backed by a fan base that treats every playoff game like a title fight. On paper, this wasn't supposed to be competitive. The Fever were written off as too young, too raw, too dependent on one or two breakout players. But that's exactly why the refs, leaning their way, raised so many eyebrows. If Vegas really was that much better, why did they need the calls? Why did every 50-50 ball suddenly become a foul on Indiana? Why did Aaliyah Boston look like she was playing with a target on her back? Because let's be real, this wasn't subtle. At one point, Odyssey Sims got hammered driving to the rim. No whistle. Less than a minute later, Wilson got tapped on the elbow mid-jumper, and the whistle came faster than the shot release. Fans weren't imagining it. The players weren't imagining it. You could feel the imbalance in the air. And yet, Indiana never broke. That's what makes this victory so legendary. They didn't just beat Vegas. They beat Vegas and the refs. They beat the weight of a league that clearly wanted its dynasty to survive. They beat the whispers, the intimidation, the politics. And when the final buzzer sounded, it wasn't just a scoreboard win. It was a cultural one. Let's talk Aya Wilson for a second. Because this scandal puts her legacy in jeopardy in a way no shooting slump or bad game ever could. Wilson has been marketed as the face of the league, a generational player, the unstoppable force, the MVP. But this audio, if it really is her, if there's even a sliver of truth to it, she goes from face of the league to face of the problem. It takes years to build a legacy. But one scandal? I could take it all away. And here's the irony. Wilson didn't even play like someone who was getting help. She was rattled, out of rhythm, missing shots she usually drains in her sleep, getting frustrated, looking at the refs for validation instead of leading her team like a true MVP. It was almost poetic, because while Indiana was showing resilience, Vegas was showing fragility, and the dynasty cracked under pressure. It raises the question, was this really a dynasty at all? Or was it a house of cards propped up by officiating bias and superstar protection? Because if Indiana can waltz into their home and dismantle them like that, even with the whistles stacked against them, what does that say about the foundation Vegas has been built on? Not much. Now, let's zoom in on the fever. Kelsey Mitchell deserves a standing ovation. 34 points in the middle of all that chaos. That's not just scoring. That's leadership. She wasn't intimidated. She didn't shrink when the whistles piled up. She stayed locked in. Every bucket felt like a slap in the face to the Aces' inflated reputation. And it wasn't just her. Boston proved why she's the backbone of this team. Taking foul after foul, still anchoring the defense, still setting screens, still battling under the rim. That kind of grit, that's what fuels up an entire roster. Lexi Hull and Odyssey Sims brought that dog mentality. Diving on the floor, locking up passing lanes, refusing to let the pressure break them. That hustle, it doesn't show up in ESPN box scores, but it wins championships. And that's the scariest part for Vegas. Indiana didn't just win this game. They exposed a blueprint. Team ball beats rig ball. Discipline beats favoritism. Heart beats politics. So where does the league go from here? This isn't something they can just sweep away. Not when fans are dissecting every frame of the audio. Not when slow-motion clips of blown calls are going viral on every platform. Not when a narrative around Vegas has shifted from dynasty to dirty. The WNBA has two choices. Investigate. Take it seriously. Review the tapes. Test the audio. Suspend refs if necessary. Fine players if necessary. Show fans that the game comes first, not the egos of a few stars. Bury it. Pretend it's nothing. Issue vague statements about context and protocol. Hope it blows over. But if they choose option 2, they're done. Because this league is at a crucial point right now. Caitlin Clark has brought in millions of new eyes. Fans who never cared about the W before are suddenly invested. Ratings are up. Ticket sales are up. People are paying attention. And now the very first scandal these new fans see is rigging. That's not just a bad look. That's catastrophic. Because casual fans don't stick around for corruption. They don't stay for drama behind the scenes. They'll leave. They'll say, well, it's not real anyway, and move on. And once that trust is gone, you don't get it back. Here's the wildest part of all. Indiana might have just saved the league from itself. Think about it. If they had lost this game, if the refs had managed to tilt it just enough for Vegas to squeak by, the audio leak would have landed completely differently. Fans would have screamed conspiracy, yes, but with evidence. It would have been a nightmare, proof that the league really was scripted. But because Indiana won, because they overcame it, there's still a chance. A chance for the WNBA to frame this not as rigged beyond saving, but as a wake-up call. That's the narrative they should lean into. Indiana didn't just win. They defended basketball itself. So let's put a bow on it. The leaked audio has cracked the shiny facade of the Aces dynasty. Aya Wilson, whether guilty or not, is now carrying a shadow over her reputation. The refs are officially under the microscope, and the WNBA? It's staring down a credibility crisis at the exact moment it can least afford one. But on the flip side, Indiana has emerged as the league's beating heart, a team that represents resilience, discipline, and integrity when the system tried to snuff it out. And in a way, that's the story fans want. Good versus corrupt, teamwork versus favoritism, discipline versus chaos. And Indiana, at least for now, stands tall as the symbol that integrity still wins. Right now, that audio has a chokehold on the league. We've already covered how Indiana beat Vegas despite the whistle. But here's where it gets deeper. This isn't just about one game, one leak, or one superstar under suspicion. This is about the system itself. Because if you think this is the first time refs have looked suspicious in a Vegas game, you haven't been watching closely. Fans have been grumbling about it for 2 seasons. Soft calls for Aya. Phantom fouls on her opponents. Traveling ignored. The whispers were always there, but whispers don't carry weight. Now, we've got a potential recording. A voice that sounds eerily close to the league's golden child, saying something that lines up a little too perfectly with what fans have been seeing. And that's the part you can't walk back. Because suddenly every game from the past 3 years looks different. Every win feels a little less clean. Every championship highlight reel has an asterisk stamped across it. And fair or not, that's the legacy Vegas is staring down right now. Let's drill into the psychology of it. Aya Wilson isn't just a player. She's the player. She's been positioned as the WNBA's LeBron, the face on the billboards, the quote on the press releases, the star that corporate sponsors can rally around. When the league needs a headliner, they call her name. And with that kind of spotlight comes 2 things: massive influence and massive protection. Because leagues love their stars shiny, untouchable, mythic. The problem? That bubble makes people start asking questions. Why does she get every whistle? Why do other stars get punished for behavior she gets away with? Why does the narrative always bend to favor her team? And now, with the leaked clip, all those questions sound a lot less like salty fan takes, and a lot more like evidence. But let's not forget, the Aces didn't just lose the game, they lost badly. 16 points on their own floor. A so-called powerhouse reduced to rubble by a team that wasn't supposed to even push them past halftime. And here's what's brutal about that. If you really had the refs in your pocket, wouldn't you win? Wouldn't it actually work? That's where it gets fascinating. Because even if there was some shady business going on, Indiana refused to play the victim. They didn't collapse. They didn't pout. They didn't fold under the pressure of blown whistles. They leaned in. Every bad call just made them sharper. Every no call just fueled the fire. Every phantom foul turned into a reason to lock in harder. And by the 4th quarter, you could see it on Vegas's faces. Panic, confusion, even resentment. They weren't just losing to the fever. They were losing to their own fragility. Because here's the truth. Dynasties aren't built on whistles. They're built on composure, depth, adaptability. And the second Wilson struggled, the Aces had nothing left to stand on. Now let's widen the lens. This scandal doesn't just put Vegas under a microscope. It drags the entire league into the mud. Because when the biggest team, led by the biggest star, gets caught in the middle of rigging accusations, it doesn't feel isolated. It feels systemic. Fans don't just say Vegas is shady. They start saying the WNBA is rigged. And that's poison. Because unlike the NBA or NFL, the W can't afford that kind of stain. It's still growing, still fighting for respect, still clawing for legitimacy in the eyes of skeptics. And now, their credibility is hanging by a thread. If the casual fan walks away thinking this league fixes outcomes, the ratings spike Caitlin Clark brought, gone. The momentum from expansion talks, gone. The goodwill of new sponsors, gone. That's how fragile this moment is. So what does the league do? If they go hard, launch an investigation, suspend refs, call Wilson out by name, they risk detonating their own marketing strategy. But if they go soft, bury it, call it taken out of context, slap a meaningless fine somewhere. They risk proving what everyone suspects already, that the league protects its stars at all costs. Neither option is clean. But here's the thing. Fans don't want clean. They want honest. Because what Indiana proved on that floor was that the game can be honest. That heart, grit, and execution still matter. That teamwork can't be bought, and toughness can't be faked. The Fever aren't just underdogs anymore. They're the league's moral compass. And if the WNBA has any sense at all, they'll ride that wave instead of fighting it. Let's break down the Fever's performance again, because it deserves more than just praise. It deserves analysis. Kelsey Mitchell. She wasn't just hot. She was inevitable. The kind of locked-in performance that bends the game around her. The aces threw doubles, switched defenders, tried to body her off her rhythm, and nothing worked. When a player is in that zone, it's not just talent. It's belief. Odyssey Sims, veteran presence. She didn't need to score 30. She needed to steady the ship. Every possession she touched looked purposeful. Every defensive assignment was executed with surgical precision. That's what veterans bring, calm in the chaos. Boston, the anchor. She absorbed hit after hit, foul after foul, but never gave the refs the satisfaction of seeing her lose it. That restraint, that's leadership. And make no mistake, her toughness is the reason Indiana's defense held. Lexi Hull, glue player energy. Hustle doesn't trend on social media, but in a playoff war, it's priceless. She was everywhere. Rebounds, scrambles, deflections. Those extra possessions broke Vegas's back. That's what real basketball looks like. A group pulling the same direction, refusing to let the environment dictate their focus. And the more you look at it, the more you realize Indiana didn't just win a game. They won a cultural battle. Because now, the Fever aren't just a playoff threat. They're a symbol. They represent fairness, authenticity, basketball the way it's supposed to be played. And Vegas? Right now, they represent the opposite. And that contrast is going to define the rest of this series and maybe the league's future. If Indiana keeps winning, every Aces loss will feel like justice. Every Fever highlight will look like proof that the system can't smother integrity forever. If Vegas somehow claws back, though, that shadow will follow them. Every whistle will be scrutinized. Every win will be doubted. Every celebration will look tainted. Either way, the damage is already done. So let's leave it here. This scandal is the WNBA's biggest test yet. Bigger than expansion. Bigger than TV deals. Bigger than Caitlin Clark's rise. Because this isn't about hype. It's about trust. And right now, trust is fragile. The league can either rebuild it or lose it for good. So what do you think? Is the leaked audio real or just smoke without fire? Did Vegas expose itself as a paper dynasty? And is Indiana, now the team, carrying the soul of the league on its shoulders? Drop your takes in the comments and hit subscribe if you want the unfiltered truth about the chaos the WNBA doesn't want you to see. Because this isn't just drama, it's survival. And the next chapter? It's going to decide everything.